Hello, everyone. I'm very well welcome. We are here today with Lee. He's from Kaplan, and I'm Diana. I'm from ACCA UK team, and I look after our learning providers and with a lot of activities with students just to make sure you're doing well, you're passing your exams. And today's live session will be about prepare to pass your strategic professional options exam. And just before we start, I would like to introduce Lee. He's here today from Kaplan.
Hi, Diana. Hi. My name's Lee. I work at Kaplan. I am the content specialist for the Advanced Performance Management paper, which I've been teaching for a long time. I think about 2010. I first started teaching that paper. Worked for Kaplan. Started working for Kaplan in 2007. I did a few years working for a university as well, where I also taught some ACCA papers there, some of the strategic level papers as well. So the before that as well, I was ACCA qualified myself. So any of these papers I haven't taught are actually the ones I sat myself going back about 20 years ago. So I know these papers quite well, and they've changed quite a lot in that time, as I'm sure you wouldn't be surprised.
Oh, that's great. They're lucky to have you today. So please tell us where you're joining us from today, so we can get to know you a little bit better. Are you nervous? Are you excited about the coming December session? Because it's still 10 days to go until the start of exam week. And I'm sure you're all getting ready and revising. And yeah, so let's see if you get any comments in the chat and we can start working around it. And just before we get our first questions, so since it's still 10 days to go until start of the exam week, I think this final days makes a difference, and it's where so many of our students put in the work that helps them to pass the exam. So Lee, what do you think? What can our students do to keep focused and make the best use of the time between now and the exam week?
I think you're absolutely right there. This is the point, isn't it? This is the bit when you get to the stage, you can count how many days you've got depending on which exams you're doing. So this for me, going back 20 years ago, I can still remember was almost this was the day when I would start and go, right, I'm going to give it my full attention now. And you start looking, how many days have I got till each exam? What papers am I studying? And you need to put together some sort of study plan. I think at this point, I think that's always the most important thing, just to make a study plan. So you can sort of map out what you're going to cover each night, and you can see, make sure that you're covering all the different papers. You can do a range of different questions, from different topics, which is always important, of course. And you can have a look and see what nights have I got more time, or maybe the weekends. Got a couple of weekends before the exam, so you probably want to save some time specifically to make sure you've looked at some questions under time conditions. So I think that's always important. You want to make sure you practice some questions under time conditions, so you know how you'll perform and how much time you get, and kind of how to pace yourself when you get to the exam. So this was always, I say, roughly about the time that I would start doing that, because you want to make sure you've had plenty of practice before you get there. I'd always have a study plan on paper. I don't know if you was the same. When you're revising many years ago, you'd have a ruler out and draw in a big box of all your days written out. I guess you can use a spreadsheet now or whatever. I don't know. Maybe on the comments, tell us how you do yours. Do you do it on a spreadsheet or a piece of paper? But I think either way, if you've got something there that sort of gives you an idea of what you want to do each night, then it sort of saves you thinking, and you just go, okay, right, I'm going to do these questions or this topic this night, and then that's really just a case of discipline then, and making sure you do them.
And we do have all these amazing ACCA resources as well. So we do have things like Study Hub, which is digital textbook. It covers chapters. It has practice questions, and out of each chapter, we've got flashcards that will help with definitions, as well as practice platform, because as Lee already mentioned, practice questions in advance and under time conditions definitely helps. And there's some mocks available from 13th of November, and you can even maybe time yourself and allow 3 hours to almost recreate this exam environment, and this should obviously help on your day with nerves, and you'll be more familiar with the platform itself.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's one thing as well. You want to make sure you're familiar with it. You don't want to get to the exam and think, oh, how do I do this, or how do I find this information? You want to make, if you like, any little mistakes now. When you're not under pressure, and that's the same with practicing your questions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and even some stats we have that just by taking mocks, your performance improves by 12% above the global pass rate. So it's a great stat that shows actually that going into practice platform and practicing your exams in advance and timing yourself definitely helps, and it pays off
wow,
when you get
that's
your results.
really interesting. That 12%. Wow, that really does show. And I guess it's always a good sign. You know that they're doing revision. I guess if they're on the practice platform, that's a sign of someone who's practiced some questions, because every bit of revision helps. That's the other thing to remember. Even if you're doing a particular topic and that topic doesn't come up, what you've learned is you've learned how to tackle what might be quite a tricky question. And
Yeah, that's true.
we've all had
Yep.
that time we open up a question and go, "What in the earth do I do here?" And actually, I think that's when you learn the most, because if you push yourself, you actually think, "Okay, let's have a look back at it. Let's have another look again. Let's read it properly." And that's when you really learn how to pass the exam. Not the question you got 90% on and you felt went really well. It's the ones you struggled with. So
Yes,
every bit helps.
exactly. And we do have a lot of students today. I can see Maz, he's from Pakistan, and he says he's very scared because he's taken AAA and he's quite concerned about the low pass rates. We've got another student from Zimbabwe, and she's taken SBL, and she's also very scared as well. So we can see that students are nervous, and I think because it's just 10 days to go, you start to get the nerves kicking in, and you definitely should prepare yourself and use all the resource that is available. We'll be sharing the links in the chat below as well for you just to save the links, just go on different platforms and try it out before we have the big day. Um, so I think it would be actually good also to have a look about the professional skills and how they work. So would you be able to explain us like how it all works and what students should be actually uh, aiming to achieve?
Yeah, absolutely. They're obviously relatively new, so it's still a lot of people asking questions. How do they work? And you've got great resources, on the ACCA website, and I'm sure there's plenty of resources and everyone's kind of study material that they use as well, which explain kind of what these professional skills are. So you've got communication, analysis and evaluation, skepticism, commercial acumen, sort of different professional skills that are slightly different in one or two of the papers, but they're pretty much sort of in those four headings. And they're going to make up 20% of the marks. And people think, okay, well, what do I need to do extra, to get those 20%? And the strange thing is, what you need to do to get those 20% is all the good things you should have been doing anyway. All the things, as I've been teaching ACCA papers now for years and years, and you tell people the same advice. And what these professional marks are actually doing is just telling you, look, this is proven there are marks for doing these things. For example, in the communication skills, one of the first pieces of advice I would give anyone when they're opening any of the questions is make sure you read the instructions carefully. That's got to be the number one thing that you do. And that's always been important, because if you read it wrong, you're going to answer the question wrong, you're going to talk about the wrong things. But in particular, you've got specific marks for that. Now, the part of the instructions might tell you to want a specific format. So you need to make sure you use whatever the requested format is in a Section A question, like briefing notes or a report. And again, you can see now with these professional marks that that's how you start to gain the communication marks. You've got to make sure you follow any specific instructions as well. They might say, don't discuss this or just focus on that area. And again, this is something you should do to make sure you're answering the question the right way. But now we specifically see that we get marks for that.
Oh, that's all very helpful, Lee. I think that sounds like a great piece of advice. And just moving into that last night before the exam, how like what do you suggest? Because obviously, like, shall you maybe revise? Shall you learn? Shall you like stay up late and like try to compensate if you feel a bit like you're not really studying?
Yeah.
So yeah, just like what would be kind of your final advice to be exam ready on the day for our students today?
So this is where I've got to contradict myself a little bit, because a minute ago I said, look, make sure you get lots of revision, and every little bit of revision helps. I think the one time you got to be really careful is before the night of the exam. You don't want to be up till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I know you might learn another topic and you might pick up some advice on how to answer a particular question. But one thing you've got to remember, and professional marks prove this as well, is how important it is to use the information that you get given in the exam. You know, you get analysis and evaluation marks, which are largely for making sure that you've been able to bring examples from the scenario and you've understood what's really going on in the question. So for me, you need to get enough sleep before you get to the exam. You know, what's on that scenario that you're going to get in your exam question, it is just as important as what was in the textbook that you might have been reading at 2 o'clock in the morning. But if you're half asleep and you want to be alert in the exam, you want to make sure you're seeing these key things that they've really given you to help you to try to answer the question. That's what the information in the scenario is there for. So you want to be alert. You want to plan your journey in. I remember, again, going back many years ago, one of my first ACCA exams, I went to go and get the train to get there, and the train didn't turn up. Now, luckily, I'd left a little bit earlier. I'd left probably a good hour earlier than I might have done normally, so I had enough time to kind of get the car and drive there instead. But this is something I think everyone's got to watch out for. I mean, if you're in the UK, we've got train strikes at the minute, so they're
Exactly,
on. They're still on that week.
exactly.
Really
Just
not.
make sure you arrive early and even like line up what you're going to be wearing on a day. And
Yeah,
I would always like go to the cafe, maybe sit next to the exam center or next to the university where I would take the exam, and I would just have a coffee in a really kind of calm environment and just project and just think of the day when you get your results and you've done all the hard work already. You're nearly there. And if you're taking your option exams, it means you're almost at the end of your journey, and just enjoy and just make most of it. And
yeah, definitely. You don't want any unnecessary stress. If you're sat there, nice breakfast, coffee, maybe a few revision notes in front of you, just to let those nerves calm. You don't want to be that person running in, stressed because they couldn't find anywhere to park or wherever they need to do. So particularly if you are in an exam centre, that's something you've got to do. Because the other advice, I think, really with all exams, try to keep calm during that exam. The calmness is so important. And again, it's back to what you said there, Diana, that you've got this far. You're here, you're in your potentially final exams for many people at this stage. You kind of deserve to be here, but you probably had somewhere along the line times when there were some challenges and there was exams you struggled with, but think you got through them. You've made it this far. So anytime you get in the exam and you open up a question, you think, oh no, I don't know what to do on this one. You think, well, okay, I've had that before. There was another exam where I opened a question and I started to panic, and that's the key thing really, is to control yourself and take a minute to compose yourself so you don't panic. This is how professional quiz show hosts make sure that they don't get kind of flustered. Is if you have a question where you can't answer it, quite often that'll play in your mind, and that'll keep playing on your mind. But if you just forget about it and move on, and look at the next question and think about all the rest of the marks you can pick up.
And I've got one advice as well, like never look through the all exam paper, because you might just can stress yourself out if there's a question and you're not sure about it. So I wouldn't go that far. I would just start my exam and go step by step, and I would just look through till the end of it. Because sometimes it just puts you off if you don't know something and you just think about it and you just can't switch off because you know this is a tricky question that you're not sure about.
Yeah,
This is kind of personal advice from me that I would
yeah.
never do.
It is that. It's that thing in the back of your mind. It's just distracting you, and you need to be able to do whatever you can just to kind of focus on the bits you do know.
Yes, and we've got Steve actually who's saying that, like, yes, just stay calm, be relaxed, and thanks for the valuable advice. So thank you so much, Steve. And I hope the session was useful. And whoever is live with us today and who will be watching recording as well, just good luck with your exams and believe in yourself, and you'll definitely succeed. And we're here to support you and to help you. And every information you have, you can always use the ACC resources available to you. And we wish you best of luck.
Best of luck, everyone. You can get
Thank
there.
you.